Good morning, everyone, and welcome to WALGA's Local Government Public Health Planning webinar series. This is the 5th session in our webinar series, and I'm so grateful to everyone for joining today, and particularly those who have been with us on every step of this wonderful journey. It's been very gratifying to see so many return each time. Today, our focus is going to be looking at mental health and wellbeing at the local level and honing in on the priority identified in the State Public Health Plan around optimising mental health and wellbeing. This was identified in our initial survey of local government officers around an area where people are very keen for additional information, support, ideas, inspiration on how to shape their approach to this work. So I'm really delighted today to have such a powerhouse of speakers and a great panel to help us navigate this work. Our panel today, I'd like to welcome Michelle Gray, Manager of the Community Support and Development Program for the Mental Health Commission. Michelle, from my brief conversation with Michelle last week, I can tell that she's working directly with local governments all across WA and has a lot of experience working with, particularly in regional areas. So I'm very, very excited to hear about the work that she does, but also the resources that the Mental Health Commission can offer more broadly around this local public health planning process. We've also got the pleasure of having Professor Sharyn Burns, Co-Director of the Act, Belong, Commit program. And Professor Burns is very much a leader in her field and holds a variety of positions at Curtin University, including Professor of Health Promotion in the School of Population Health. And I understand also heads up, I was going to get this right, is chair of Curtin University's Human Research Ethics Committee. So a very, very busy woman and very inspirational. So it's fantastic that we've got Sharyn along today. And Paul Peacock from Richmind WA. Paul and I had a bit of a mind meld in our first conversation and found lots of synergies in the work that he does at Richmind WA. Both in my own family community life, but also in the work that we do here at WALGA to support local governments in the work that they do around supporting community members experiencing more acute mental health issues and support with trauma de-escalation and all sorts of mental health first aid training. So we have a really diverse panel today, and I'm really keen to get stuck into the conversation. We've timed this seminar really well because we're in the lead up to a full calendar of events throughout October, marking Mental Health Week and raising awareness of the need for all of us to lean into the prevention and promotion of mental health and wellbeing. And I just thought it was very apt that Australia's Mental Health Australia's theme for this year's World Mental Health Day is connect with your community. So I thought this is the perfect synergy here. I had to think really hard about how we could program this session in a way that honours the fact that for the majority of local government officers, optimising mental health and wellbeing is core business for you. Each week our team reads local government newsletters from across the state and marvels at the impact that you are making through programs delivered by community development teams, public libraries, sports and rec facilities, rangers, art centres, environmental health teams, and importantly, all the community volunteers working in your local community, whether they're driving ambulances or aiding in recovery efforts after bushfires and floods. I think all of this work is core to thriving communities and optimising mental health and wellbeing. So it's a really cross-cutting priority that cuts across many areas, both of the state public health plan, and I'm sure as you're developing your local government public health plan, you're seeing that many of these pieces of work are intersecting across different priority areas of your plan. And last week, I saw firsthand the transformational impact of the work local governments are doing, particularly across the larger metro local governments, welcoming newly arrived people to Australia and helping in their resettlement process, connecting them with local health and mental health services, but just as importantly, providing that initial social network for support. Often for people leaving highly traumatising contexts internationally. Local drug action teams are in place right across WA, particularly in regional and remote areas of WA, with state and local government teams working in partnership with community organisations and community members with lived and living experience to prevent the harmful impacts of drug and alcohol in the first place emerging. The Shire of Harvey this week is celebrating the rollout of a pilot Forget Me Not Cafe pilot program for community members living with dementia and or memory loss and their carers. And this is just a few practical examples of the high levels of activity going on across local governments that are already contributing to mental health and wellbeing. So today, we've got two objectives. One is to help you identify and draw your attention, if you're the one sort of coordinating across your administration, to find those activities that are already underway and already operating within your local government, to think about the vast diversity of activities that are already contributing to mental health and wellbeing that might be right for your implementation plan to capture in your public health plan. But secondly, it's just to raise awareness of other campaigns you might not be familiar with, sources of information, programs, policies, and services where you might like to draw on if you're ready for that stretch, that next step in your planning journey. So I will stop talking now. I know I do it too much, but I just wanted to provide that context because I think this is an area that you could carve in 100 different ways. So I just wanted to pay tribute to all that work that's going on already. But I'll throw now to Michelle at the Mental Health Commission, who's going to kick us off to provide some of that broader policy context and then the direct supports and resources that the Mental Health Commission have to offer local governments working in this space. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Christina. I too would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land in which we meet today. I'm sitting here actually in Mundaring or Mundaring, as the local Aboriginal custodians would call it. And I'd also like to acknowledge the custodians of today and those of tomorrow. And we also recognise the continuing connection to land, waters, and how culture is held and nurtured in the shared space. And I'm sitting looking out my window. We're right on the cusp of Camberang, so those wet wintry days are getting shorter and those warmer sunny days are starting to head in. So I'm just going to share my screen now. There we go. everybody see those slides? I'm hoping you can.
Yeah.
Great, perfect, perfect. So, let's move that way. So as I mentioned today, and as Christina said, I work with the Mental Health Commission in the Community Support Development Programs team. I have a team of 13 staff. We're at full capacity at the moment. We're down a couple and we're just recruiting, but we work across the state working with a whole range of services to address mental health and wellbeing and alcohol and other drug prevention, and they go hand in hand. We need to have mentally healthy communities. We also need to look at alcohol use and other drugs within our community as well. So the Mental Health Commission is a very broad portfolio. Okay, so we also would like to recognise lived experience. So we recognise the individual and collective expertise of those with living and lived experience of mental health, alcohol and other drug issues and suicidal crisis, including their families and significant others. And it's important because everybody brings some element to the work they do through lived and living experience, whether it be through the families that we have or our friends and significant others in our community. Our role in the public health planning. The Mental Health Commission has, I guess, our overarching role is that we act as the government agency focused on providing, coordinating and leading mental health and alcohol and other drug services and system reform for the state. And that's done largely through our strategic planning and policy development, funding services for severe mental health and AOD issues, promoting prevention and early intervention programs, which is largely where my team sits in that prevention and wellbeing space, and fostering a collaborative person-centred approach to modern and effective mental health system. And we aim to improve the community's mental wellbeing by ensuring that we've got accessible, integrated services that address system-wide issues such as housing needs and for individuals with mental health challenges. So it's a really broad remit. And as I say, we're really lucky to be able to have a whole range of departments that can work across that space. My camera doesn't want to share. There we go. So in terms of the different departments and what we do, we have our system leadership, which looks at transforming the mental health and AOD services to better meet the needs of community. We have our strategic planning and policy area. So we have a number of strategic plans which help guide service providers and communities around addressing both mental health and alcohol and other drugs. There is actually a new mental health and alcohol and other drug strategy out for comment at the moment. It's in development and it's up for its final round of comments and submissions back to the Commission. And I have got a link at the very end of this page here to that 2025-2030 mental health and alcohol and other drugs strategy, where you can actually make submissions. There is a mention of local governments and local government roles through the public health planning in that. We also do service funding. So when I talk about service funding, we're talking about large scale delivery of services in our regions, across our metro area, whether they be community-based services for people with severe mental health and AOD issues, or whether it be prevention services. Again, prevention and early intervention. So we commission and promote programs for mental health and AOD prevention, early intervention for young people. So we have a school drug education road aware program that we fund in an MOU with the Department of Education that looks at resilience skills for young people starting at that early intervention level. There's system-wide coordination. We also have innovation and evidence-based care that we look at. There's a role of advocacy and our integrated services. So again, provision of mental health and AOD drug, alcohol and other drug services for holistic approaches. So some of the things that we can do or how we work with local governments. We've had representation for a while now on the State Public Health Planning Working Group. That's through our Office of Alcohol and Other Drugs. And also support for the local government health planning through resources to reduce harms related to alcohol and other drugs. So we've got our illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals and other drugs of concern. That's around addressing priority 5. There's some new resources that will soon be published on the MHC website. And there'll be some example actions within there, strategies and implementation ideas around addressing illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals and other drugs of concern. And there'll be small, medium and large investment options for all local governments, of all sizes. The other publication that we've got is the State Public Health Plan Priority 3. There's some current resources available on the MHC website. So we've got our Managing Alcohol in Our Communities. It is an older resource and the references are probably in need of an update, and that will be coming in the near future. But the tools and strategies that are actually listed within that document remain relevant and very useful for local governments in that public health planning space. So I would encourage people to go and have a look at those. We also, within our prevention and wellbeing area of the Commission, have a number of public education and health promotion programs. And these are programs that can be tapped into by local governments for using within their own agencies, as well as within the community, extending the reach. So we've got public health campaigns for the Alcohol Think Again program, Drug Aware, and also Think Mental Health. So we have 3 delivery streams. Just to give you a very brief overview, so the Alcohol Think Again program, that's part of a comprehensive approach in WA, which we aim to reduce the harm of alcohol through mass reach, social marketing strategies, and delivering campaigns that will reinforce the National Health and Medical Research Council guidelines to reduce risks of harm from drinking alcohol. There's 3 main campaigns that we tend to put out each year. The first one is What's Your Poison, which is addressing our Alcohol and Health Guideline 1. We've got our Parents, Young People and Alcohol Guideline, We All Need to Say No, which addresses Guideline 2. And that's around ensuring that parents are aware around the impact of alcohol on the developing brain, which then can in turn affect young people, in their mental health and wellbeing down the track. And that typically runs around the leavers period time. So just so parents are aware of, what can potentially happen for young people. We also address alcohol use in pregnancy through our Amazing campaign, which addresses guideline number 3. In the drug side of things, we've got our Drug Aware program, which again aims to prevent and delay and reduce drug use and related harms. And that's by providing some credible evidence information to help people make informed choices and decisions around their drug use and related behaviours. So we have one specific campaign that looks at the growing brain, which is cannabis and developing brain. And the other one's Party Smarter, which is about to start ramping up in the next couple of months. That tends to be around the festival season, but also around people going to leavers, young people going to leavers as well. So there's a couple of pictures there of some of the resources that we use for the leavers. So not every area of local government will be impacted by leavers, but there are some things there to support. In terms of the Think Mental Health space, this program obviously is aiming as a public education program to enable West Australians to maintain mental health and wellbeing and decrease the incidence and severity of mental health outcomes. So we've got a campaign that's called Find Your Way to OK. That is at the moment targeting 18 to 24-year-olds. So that's young adults, obviously, and that's looking at increasing the proportion of young adults that will try new actions to protect their mental health and well-being. So there'll be tips in there around, being socially connected, activities that people can undertake that increase that social connection, but also promote their mental health and well-being. And that's on a regular basis, not just on an ad hoc basis. And also being able to feel confident and have an ability to maintain their mental health and well-being. So again, all of these campaigns can be found on our Think Mental Health website, and I've got the link here in this presentation as well that you'll be able to access. We also have a couple of previous campaigns that can be utilised by local governments as a resource or tool, and one of them is the Families Under Pressure. This was for parents of children 12 years and under, and it was about increasing parents' confidence in communicating with their children about emotions, increasing parents' confidence around helping their children identify and describe their emotions, and also increase mental health literacy for parents. We are working on another sequel to this, which is also going to be looking at parents of teens, so 13 to 17-year-old again, which is an all-important age group. So these again are resources that local governments can tap into when looking at how they might be able to address mental health and wellbeing in their communities, particularly for these age groups. The other thing we also have is through our prevention planning and development program is a suite of resources for local governments that are either developed or in process. So following the release of the state plan, the Commission was started working on developing a series of mental health and wellbeing fact sheets. They're similar to the published climate change and Aboriginal health and wellbeing fact sheets that are out in the public domain. The fact sheets will introduce mental health and wellbeing broadly across 8 key mental health and wellbeing action areas that are outlined in the plan. We also have currently published the West Australian Mental Wellbeing Guide, and that has a really nice look at the life course. So it can be divided into 4 sections. So we've got young people, children and young people, young adults, adults and older adults. And it also helps to identify the risk and protective factors for each of those age groups, which gives a really nice idea for local governments about where they might be able to focus some activities to address particular priority populations within their communities. So again, there's some links here in this presentation. You're welcome to reach out to the Community Support Development Programs team for further support on this. And again, that link there will take you straight to the Mental Health and Wellbeing Guide. And then it brings us to my team, which does a lot of work in this space. So the Community Support Development Program team has 2 streams, and I'm just focusing on the regional support team. We support suicide prevention coordinators and alcohol and other drug prevention coordinators across the state, and they are funded by the Mental Health Commission through our community alcohol and drug service teams. We also support local communities, services and key stakeholders in the planning, development and implementation of and review of targeted initiatives to address mental health and alcohol and other drug-related harms at regional and local levels. A lot of our work tends to be around working with our suicide prevention coordinators and alcohol and other drug prevention coordinators around the state, facilitating meetings to identify some issues in their local community and what stakeholder roles could be. We also support the development of alcohol and other drug management plans and community wellbeing plans across the state. Largely, they're delivered by our suicide prevention coordinators and AOD prevention coordinators, but at times, sometimes we are asked to come in and support. There's also the ability to work with local regions in terms of developing capacity to address alcohol and other drug and mental health and wellbeing. And sometimes we'll go out and do presentations to our stakeholder groups in those regions around particular topics. We also support suicide prevention coordinators in developing and implementing suicide prevention strategies. So both our alcohol and other drug prevention coordinators and suicide prevention coordinators do have a regional prevention plan. and they do work with local governments within those plans as well. We can also support communities when seeking funding for local communities, and I'll get to the funding a bit further on in this presentation. And we also coordinate the implementation of Commonwealth strategies through local service providers. I've also had the pleasure of attending a couple of public health planning workshops so far in the metro area. And my team are available to attend those workshops if there's ones coming up, where if you need someone on hand and you want someone with some information or background in this area, we certainly have participated in those discussions and workshopping of ideas and things at that level. As I mentioned, we do have the outcome other drug prevention coordinators that we fund. They are statewide. And as I said, most of them work with local governments and have said that they are happy to support in public health plans. We also have, through those coordinators, a number of alcohol and other drug management plans which bring together stakeholders across the state to look at issues of concern for particular towns or communities. Currently, there's 11 active around the state. But there's also an opportunity there in those plans through addressing some of the issues raised in the public health planning process. So we do encourage local governments to participate on these plans. I've just listed there where we've got our coordinators based. So some areas will have a coordinator and a couple of officers. Others will just have a coordinator. So obviously Broome, Derby and Kununurra, we have people in place. Karratha, Port Hedland and Newman, Geraldton. We have one in the lands at Warburton, Northern, Bunbury, Albany, Kalgoorlie and Esperance. So they are quite widely dispersed.
Michelle?
Again, yes?
Sorry, may I just ask a question there?
Sure.
Where would people generally find these staff? Are they often in hospital settings in the regions, or are they in the separate offices of the Mental Health Commission?
So we contract service providers to deliver these services. So the best way, if people want to get in contact with them, I'd suggest that they contact our Community Support and Development Programs team, which I'll give contacts at the end. But they're usually based in our community alcohol and drug services, which are contracted services. So the majority of them are non-government organisations. So we have Holyoke, Hope Community Services, Palmerston, but they differ from region to region. And we do have a couple in the regions at WA Country Health Services as well. So the best way for people to contact them probably would be to come through us first, and we can then give you contact details depending on where your region is.
Fabulous, thank you.
And that's the same too for the suicide prevention coordinators that I'm about to talk to. Again, they are located all around the state. You would have noticed with the AOD prevention coordinators, there weren't any in the metro. We do a lot of work with public health units in the metro area. But in terms of suicide prevention, those that we do have coordinators actually in the metro area. Again, the suicide prevention coordinators, sometimes they'll work collaboratively with their AOD PCs to develop up community wellbeing plans. And there's actually 8 of those across the state. A lot of those ones are in the Wheatbelt region and are quite active. In addition to that, I also wanted to mention that some of these coordinators actually do get involved with some really innovative work that local governments are doing. So, for instance, particularly in the metro area, there's some very progressive local governments that have already been working, doing some plans around alcohol and other drugs. And I've actually had the opportunity to work alongside the metro population health units with regard to plans that have been developed by local governments. So the Canning, Armidale, Gosnells alcohol action plans, City of Perth Subiaco Vincent plan, the Belmont South Perth Vic Park plan and City of Stirling. And they are also great ways to implement some of the mental health wellbeing activities and actions by drawing in a stakeholder group to actually work on those implementation of actions, so it doesn't just fall to one agency. And that's the same premise with these community wellbeing plans and alcohol and other drug management plans. And that's why I said it's a really great tool for local governments to get involved in, because there will be initiatives coming out of that that can feed into their public health plans as part of their implementation. So it's not about creating extra work. These groups are trying to share resources and share the activity across so that it doesn't fall to one group. In terms of support for knowledge and training, Community Support Development Programs team at the Commission also offer a range of free workshops. They're only in the metro area, unfortunately, and we may be able to look at doing something bespoke in areas, regions, but it would require sort of getting a whole group of people together. So we have in the metro our ST275, an introduction to population-based AOD prevention. So this is actually coming up on the 21st of October, and registrations are open at the moment. And I've got a link down the bottom there for registrations to find the training and register for the trainings if you're interested. So over 3 days, the workshop provides you with an understanding of the principles and models of AOD prevention strategies, also prevention theory, and some resources to support implementation of those strategies. So it actually looks at campaigns, it looks at alcohol control strategies, so things like alcohol restrictions and the Liquor Control Act. It looks at volatile substance use. So there's a whole range of information, which is the basic nuts and bolts of AOD prevention. And we're just working to update our second training, which is developing alcohol and other drug management plan training. And that's an advanced training that provides participants with practical application of the skills and tools to develop those plans with service providers. And that can address alcohol and other drugs in the community. We are in the process, as I said, reviewing that. We're hoping to extend that to a 2-day training and broaden that out so it's not just alcohol and other drugs, that it will incorporate developing community wellbeing plans and giving people basic facilitation skills and tools to actually develop localised plans to address the concerns that they've had raised in their communities. So the other supports, I did note that, Christina, you mentioned about the local drug action teams, which is great. We've also contract Holyoke to deliver the alcohol and other drug community prevention service, which is the community response committees who work around the state to improve health and wellbeing and prevent AOD use and reduce the harms linked to alcohol supply and use. These teams are working, they're place-based teams, Kimberley, Midwest, Goldfields, Great Southern and Southwest. So they do have place-based engagement officers that work with communities to develop up community plans, and there's some annual funding that they have for those plans that they can then implement some activities. So again, this is another group that can be linked in with local governments and support local governments. And then obviously, as I mentioned, you mentioned the LDATs. So the LDATs also do work with local governments. I think there's quite a few around the state at the moment working with local governments, like you mentioned. And they do have some requirements to develop up a little mini action plan that can be implemented in those local areas, and there's funding attached to that. In terms of funding, obviously the Commission facilitates the delivery of mental health and AOD services and programs across the state, but that's at a statewide level of large services. We don't do any particularly small grant funding programs, with the exception of a small FASD program that we're running, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, so alcohol and pregnancy program. But there are some other opportunities out there. So criminal property confiscation grants, these ones are linked back to, I guess, Department of Justice initiatives that reduce crime and obviously impacts community safety in the regions and communities. And we know that sometimes community safety or the perception of people not feeling safe in their community can inhibit them actually participating in their community. So this funding program has just closed. The next round's anticipated July 2026, but it offers match funding for eligible organisations for projects to address that impact and damage caused by criminal activities, but it can include diversionary activities with a justice outcome. So that's one avenue, and those grants, as I said, it's matched. So it's you match the funding that the organisation has. You can apply up to that amount for the grant. So I put a link to their program on here, but that's one avenue to have a look at for local governments because they are eligible. Obviously, Lotteries West, not-for-profit organisations and local governments can also apply for Lottery West funding. And again, this will provide funding for different activities that you might want to do in your community. And did I miss Healthway? And there's also Healthway, which has dropped off my slide. So there's also the Healthway funding, which I can send through some extra details for. But
that's okay. Michelle,
yeah.
we actually had Lottery West and Healthway talk about their funding opportunities at last week's webinar. So if you want more information, people can go and access the recording for that. Perfect.
Cool. And that's our contact details there. So if you email community programs at mhc.wa.gov.au, that mailbox is monitored by my team, and we can certainly point anybody that's interested in either in the metro area working with the team at the Commission or being put in contact with our coordinators in the regions. We'd be more than happy to do that and share those contact details.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle. That's a very big amount of information that I'm sure is very welcome across the sector. I feel like it's so helpful to have a human and a direct contact that people can reach out to rather than having to sort of navigate various websites and a range of different service providers to get that information. So thank you so much. WALGA is liaising with the team working on the local government guide around illicit drugs, pharmaceuticals and drugs of other concern, and have agreed that we will circulate and notify via our newsletter and other comms channels when that's ready. So that's been a long time in the making. So we will wait with bated breath for that one to come out. I'm sure it's going to be extremely practical and user-friendly. Okay, so we will just save questions, I think, because it's time is galloping away, which is likely my fault from the beginning. I'll throw now just to Professor Burns, who's going to just share information about the Act Belong Community program, of which many of you are familiar, but I think perhaps less familiar with some of the supporting resources and documentation and other work that goes on behind the scenes. I'll hand over to you now. Thanks.
Thank you. I've just shared my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Michelle, for that great update on Mental Health Commission. It was really nice hearing all the programs. And I've been around in health promotion for a long time, so I worked on some of those programs that you talked about a long time ago. So it was really nice to see the longevity. So I'm here today to present on Mentally Healthy WA. And as was mentioned, quite a few of you will have heard of Mentally Healthy WA, and some of you might be partners of Mentally Healthy WA, which is great. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleague, Rodney Glossop, who is here today as well. And Rodney is our partnerships coordinator, and he does lots of the hard work that I'm going to be talking about today. But I'd also like to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people, the traditional owners of the land on which I present from today, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And also to say that, during George Bar, I've spent lots of time in Noongar country, in Yamaji country and Wongai country, enjoying the beautiful scenery, the beautiful wildflowers, the beautiful fauna. And, I'd like to, the acknowledgement to country was very moving. I would agree. It was very moving and lovely tribute. Thank you. So who are we? Act Belong Commit is the statewide mental health promotion campaign. We have a really long history. So in about 2002, there was some initial research looking at mental health related programs. And at that time, there was no mental health promotion campaign. And most of the focus, in that time, mental health promotion and prevention was a fairly new concept. It wasn't in 2000, we had our first national mental health promotion and prevention policies and strategic plans. So it's a really recent thing that mental health and wellbeing has been recognised as being really important. And Western Australia have been pretty much leaders in the area since then. So in 2002, there was some research that was done. 2005, a trial Act Belong Commit program was developed and implemented in 6 different regional settings. And then in 2008, we rolled out the statewide campaign, which has been continuing ever since in various forms. And, it's evolved over time. And I'll show you a little peek at some of our new campaign materials as well. But what I should say too is that the Act Belong Commit program comes under Mentally Healthy WA, and Act Belong Commit is the campaign focus of the program. But we also have some dedicated target programs, and our partnerships program is one of our very important links to Act Belong Commit. And that's the bit that local governments can become really involved in. That's a bit about getting out there and becoming involved and delivering Act Belong Commit to the rest of the population. And I think that's what makes this campaign really unique. It's not just a campaign, it's all about involving community. We also have a targeted schools program as well, and I'm not going to talk much about that today, but that might get mentioned a few times. So why ABC? And that was developed by the very early research, looking at what we can do to improve our mental health and wellbeing. And remembering that this is a mental health and wellbeing campaign, we're very much about promoting mental health and wellbeing, recognising that some people do need some supports, and so there's sometimes some links to supports, but our focus is mental health and wellbeing. And that research showed us that there's some 3 really key things that we can do. We can do something, so we can keep active, and that can be spiritually, mentally, socially, culturally. So lots of different things that we can do to keep active, and that's really what our campaign talks about, those types of things. But it's also important to belong, and lots of the mental health research supports that finding that if you're connected to family, to friends, to community, then your mental health is much better, and you have much better outcomes. And there's also lots of work around the need to belong and how that's important. So when we look at schools, we focus a lot on connectedness and belonging, but it's also really important for adults as well. And then commit, so do something meaningful. So as well as at belonging, we also encourage people to try and do something that's meaningful, important and valuable to you. So that might be to volunteer, it might be to learn something new, to take on a challenge, to help a neighbour, a whole range of different sorts of things, recognising that people are diverse and not everyone wants to do the same things. So there's lots of different things you can do to act, belong and commit. So as I mentioned, it is Australia's longest running mental health campaign, the first mental health campaign. Really importantly, and something we pride ourselves on, is that it's evidence-based. So, being based in a university helps us, and, a lot of our outputs at university are around making sure things are evidence-based. So we certainly spend a lot of time making sure that we evaluate each year, and we do a range of different sorts of evaluations. So we will have our standard evaluation that happens annually, but we also do a lot of formative evaluation, testing materials, and evaluating other aspects of the campaign. And it's also adapted and delivered at the moment in over 10 other countries, but we're also working with a really big consortium of about 30 countries. So it's something that's being taken up worldwide, which is kind of nice thing. It's come from Western Australia, and it's really well recognised, and particularly in European countries that are big uptakers. But we have also had some examples in some African countries as well, but the people that we're working with are mainly with European countries. So our vision is to have a society that values mental health and where everyone has the opportunity to be mentally healthy. Our mission is to enhance population mental health by creating supportive environments that strengthen individual and community resilience. And our goals are to extend the reach of the Act Belong Commit campaign, to foster mutually benefit relationships, to enhance capacity and deliver effective mental health promotion, and to provide leadership in evidence of mental health promotion. And in doing that, our partners are integral to our program because they're the people that help us get that message out. So our new mental health campaign, so we've had various iterations of Act Belong Commit over the years, and that's come from our research as well as when we need to improve, when we need to change focuses and to make sure that things are current and relevant. So our latest campaign has just launched. Back in the days when I worked in the health department, our campaigns were very TV focused and billboards and things like that. These days we focus very much on social media. So we do have some TV, movie impact for our campaigns as well, but a lot of our campaign is social media, and that's where our partners really help us because our partners can use these social media tiles and promote them within their local government organisation. So that helps with your local government action plan as well, so your public health plan as well, because there's lots of simple things you can do to help promote mental health and wellbeing within your community without you actually having to do too much, because we've got lots of resources that you can then adapt. So these are just some of our tiles for our For Better Mental Health campaign. Should also say this was a really interesting campaign, and thanks to Rodney and some of our other team for organising all of the people that starred in this campaign, because they're all our current partners. So all of the people that you see in the campaign are not actors. They're people who are partners of Act Belong Commit, and they came along and participated in the filming and the development of these of the ads. So you can see they're just some of our partners. So there's quite a few different ones. Let's see if this works. This is so that's one of our really short segments. We have a few others, but just to give you a bit of an idea. And hopefully you've seen that on social media, or you've seen it if you happen to watch TV, which not many people do, but hopefully you've seen our ads around. So what can you do as local government? So thinking back to the public health plans that you will be developing or that you have developed, and in line with the promote, protect, prevent and enable goals or objectives, there's a lot of different things you can do. And when I was thinking about how these fit, they actually fit. Most of the things that we do fit across all of these. So I've just thrown some into some of the different areas, but I think you can apply them in a whole range of different ways. And I've tried to use some examples of some of our current local governments who are partners who are doing some really great things, and also to highlight that doesn't have to be that difficult, and our partners program and other team members are here to help you develop materials and help with your materials. And, you know, we have a whole range of different resources to help. So as part of promoting, you know, one of the big focuses of the public health plan is to foster strong, connected communications. And one of the big areas is to optimise mental health and wellbeing, which fits in really nicely with Act, Belong, Commit, because that's basically what we do. So there's lots of ways that you can promote Act, Belong, Commit and the mental health and wellbeing message. So using any of our materials, branding any of our materials, that will all help promote. And just some examples of some different activities that organised that a local government have promoted and branded. So some outdoor movies and an art exhibition. Okay, when it comes to prevent, so one of the core strategies of the public health plans is to prevent disease, to prevent chronic disease, communicable disease and injuries. So when we're thinking of preventing mental health and promoting mental health and wellbeing, our research shows there's 15 protective behaviours, and these protective behaviours are the behaviours that we focus on when we work with our campaigns and work with our partners, and these are the sort of things that we encourage people to participate in. And the research has proven that these are really effective, and we actually measure these behaviours as part of our evaluation as well. And some of them are really simple. So things like chatting with people outside the home, and that links to connectedness and belonging, because we know that people that don't interact with other people certainly are more likely to suffer from loneliness, and there's a whole range of negative mental health outcomes associated with that. Spending time in nature, we've already had a look at some nice nature today and shown how mentally healthy that can be for us. Meeting up with friends, physical activity, practicing spirituality, thinking or concentrating activities, visiting with family, influence of religion. And you'll note we've just referenced that as well. We have a new publication, a really recent publication that talks about some of the associations with those, if anyone's interested. Joining formal or informal groups, helping others, attending local events, volunteering, doing something challenging, joining a cause, and attending large public events. So those 15 activities are all really important prevention behaviours. So when you're developing your plans, think about how you can integrate some of those behaviours. And from a local government perspective, I'm sure most local governments are doing a lot of those things already. Community gardens, having local events, having volunteering programs, advertising groups, all of those sorts of things are things that you're doing already. So it's just a matter of linking in to your plan. Okay, and there's some examples of things that other local governments are doing. So this is a City of Melville community yoga session, and a City of Wanneroo National Ride to Work Breakfast Day. And there's lots of different things that people are out there doing. Okay, the third objective, or the third strategy, is to protect. And protect includes a whole range of different sorts of things. So looking at environmental health type protection against pandemics, and also to lessen the impacts of climate change. And again, local government has really good capacity to do a whole range of things in these areas. Now, most local governments in Western Australia are now quite proactive with thinking about issues around climate change, particularly with recycling and FOGOs and other sorts of environmental impact strategies. So it's thinking about how you can link that to your plan and how Act, Belong, Commit can actually help you and help promote those strategies. So I've just popped up a screenshot from the City of South Perth. So City of South Perth actually has an Act, Belong, Commit page, which is really exciting. Some of the local governments use our logos, but City of South Perth have they've got a dedicated page with some links to the Act Belong Commit campaign. Down the side, they've also got some ways that people can get involved, and that links into our protective behaviours as well. So volunteering, they've got a community gardens program, some community funding, street meets, sponsorship, partnerships, collaborations. And one of the things that they link to is environmental things. So how can you help our bushland areas? So having an urban bushland council, some volunteering, and adopt a spot program. So that's just an example of how you can link Act Belong Commit to things that you might already be doing to help foster that message of Act Belong Commit and to enhance mental health and wellbeing within your local government area. Okay, and the last area of enable, which is to bolster public health systems, workforce and leverage partnerships to support health and wellbeing, is really what Act Belong Commit does, or what the partnership part of Act Belong Commit does. We support local governments, we support other partners, we help promote workplace mental health and wellbeing, and importantly, we leverage partnerships. So think about the ways that there's lots of different ways that local governments can enable. And as I said, a lot of the promote, protect, prevent and enable fall across all of those areas, the strategies fall across a range of different areas. Okay, and this is just an example of Shire of Wanneroo. They have participated in Act of August. Act of August is one of our strategies. So each month we'll have a different strategy that partners can pick up and promote. And so the Shire has taken up some of the activities, looking at things that they can do to promote Act of August. Okay, and just an example of one of our shires that's doing lots of different things. So the City of Rockingham recently had a really big expo, and in that expo they invited all of their Act Belong Commit partners. So in a minute I'll show you the different sorts of partners, but local governments are site partners, so they're big partners, and they invited all of the different sorts of little partners that were involved, the other partners that were involved in the City of Rockingham, had a big expo, showcased all of their activities and did a whole range of things. They also have a really good volunteer program, and as part of the volunteer program, there's a picture there of Rodney presenting an award to the Volunteer of the Year from that particular area. But volunteering, again, is one of the really big protective factors and something that we really promote. But it's also something that local governments can get on board with and really encourage volunteers, have volunteer programs, look at outstanding volunteers within their local government area. And they also developed a whole range of social media little videos to focus on different sorts of things that they promote. So this is part of Act of August, and they've done a whole range of different little videos that they use. So promoting their local government, but also promoting that mental health and wellbeing focus. So our partnership program is the program that delivers the local government strategies. So as I mentioned, our campaign is Act Belong Commit, which sits under Mentally Healthy WA, and we have our partnership program. So the partnership program is a social franchising program, which means that the partners, pick up the message and deliver it to their clientele or their audience. And we now have just over 571, and I've put 571 plus partners because we're always getting new partners. But at last count, it was 571. As I mentioned, our site partners are our bigger partners. So we have local government and other big organisations. So WA Country Health Service, South Metropolitan Health Service, and different shires and local government areas. We then have associate partners, and a lot of the associate partners are people like volunteering organisations, community care, ISHA, which is the multicultural group. We have community partners, and there's lots of different community partners. So it can be anyone from a little book club to a soccer club, so range of different sorts of community partners. And we also have school partners. So we have a big schools program that we really try and foster and provide resources and support to schools. And then we have our international partners, which I've mentioned previously. So our partner program is really quite diverse. And so our partner support includes all partners get an onboarding training. So they have training around how to use the Act, Belong, Commit message and what sort of support we can provide. Then we have ongoing resources to promote mental health and wellbeing, and there's a whole range of different resources. For our schools partners, we have a specific schools portal, and we have curriculum materials and other supports. For our community and site partners, we have a range of supports, range of resources that you might like to use with your community. We also have a mental wellbeing quiz, and anyone can access the mental wellbeing quiz, which is situated on our website. And that mental wellbeing quiz enables people to look at some of the things that they're doing, how they're feeling. So it's based on the Warwick-Edinburgh scale, which is a well-known mental health and wellbeing scale. But then it also asks you some things that you're doing from an Act, Belong, Commit basis, and it pops out with some recommendations for you. So if you're, it is an individual tool, but it's things that the local government can use that and provide a link to that if they want to, because then that gives their people the opportunity to have a look. And the nice thing about the quiz is that it does spit out some it does give you some ideas of different activities that you can do to enhance your mental health and wellbeing. We have an activity finder, which is really, really useful. So the activity finder will have different activities that organisations, so our partners, are delivering. So this might be community-based partners, it could be local government areas. So the partners put the activity into the activity finder. So if someone is in, I'm in Town of Vic Park, if I'm sitting in Town of Vic Park and I want to do something, I might want to go and play tennis, I could put that in and see if there's any activities in the activity finder. And if there'd been an Act, Belong, Commit partner who had some activities in there, that would pop up. So the activity finder works best when we've got lots of activities in it, and we certainly have a lot of activities at the moment, but that's something that local governments can use and link to as well, and really useful tool for people. We have monthly health promotion initiatives. So I've given you some examples of Active August, which and each month we'll have a different sort of initiative and different resources and different supports for partners around those initiatives. We also do some grant.
Sharyn, we've probably got about 2 minutes, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just about done. We've got some grant application and research support as well. We do regular webinars and workshops for our partners, and we have partner networking and collaboration. So that's just a picture of the activity finder. And that's a picture of our volunteer toolkit, which was one of our resources. And a bit of an overview of Act, Belong, Commit and what we do. So we have some industry knowledge, we provide general advice, we have resources and assets, we have lots of research data, and we provide support letters and quotes. And I'd just like to thank our partners. So we're supported by Curtin University, and we are funded by Healthway, the Mental Health Commission and Stan Perrin Charitable Foundation. So thank you.
That was fabulous. Thank you so much, Sharyn. And Rodney, we might just need to ask people to pop their mic on mute if they're not
Stop.
speaking at the moment. And Rodney's just popped up on screen there. So Rodney is the partnerships coordinator. Is that correct, Rodney?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Christina. And I just want to say it's great to see so many partners on the call today. I was just looking around at who the attendees are, and I can see quite a few of our partners, but also some local governments who aren't partners. So yeah, feel free to reach out and we can look at getting you on board.
And Rodney, anyone that works with partners as diverse as any other Collie and Copenhagen gets absolutely, you know, my full appreciation. I think that's tremendous. As a Midwest Wheatbelt girl, I appreciate the enormity of that job. So congratulations to all the team on the scale of that achievement. And just so people are aware, WALGA does sit on the WA Mentally Healthy WA Steering Committee. So if you have any feedback, please get in touch with me if you're part of the Act, Belong, Commit program, or you would like more information or have ideas on how the group can support the sector more broadly. I would love to hear that and be able to feed it through to the committee. Okay, I'm just conscious of time, and I really want to make sure that Paul has an opportunity to share the work that he's doing. So I'll throw straight to Paul, and please feel free to just take an extra, 5 minutes if you have that flexibility in your calendar, and just so that we can ensure that we give Paul enough time. I'll throw to you now, Paul. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I just acknowledge I'm actually sitting on Wajak Noongar Buja up in the beautiful Perth Hills at the moment. I'll try not to keep everyone for too long. My name is Paul Peacock. I'm the training manager and bouncing back coordinator at Richmind WA. Some of you may know us as Richmind Wellbeing, but we've recently had a bit of a brand change. We're Western Australia's largest mental health service provider, with over 50 years of experience delivering community-based support and recovery programs and training across the state. These sort of forums are fantastic because they give people the opportunity to have conversations. And for Richmind in the past couple of years, conversations have actually started a new space in where we're working. I was in Bustleton a couple of years ago on a mental health week, and was just chatting to a couple of people down there about some of the challenges that the City of Bustleton were having. And from that, we developed a trauma-informed de-escalation training that we've been down multiple times with the City of Bustleton, the City of Bunbury, and through conversations, we've also done work with the City of Armidale and more sort of happening. So today, I sort of want to approach the topic that we're talking about from a slightly different perspective. So not just as a mental health worker reciting statistics or clinical approaches, but as a community member recognising the profound ripple effects that acute mental health crises can have on our local towns and our economies. When we look at how these issues can seriously impact regional and rural areas where suicide prevention is a huge priority, and crucially, how local governments can step up to support and promote organisations like ours and all of the other organisations that you've heard from today, and vice versa, I guess. Let's acknowledge the reality that we're facing, but from a community lens. So acute mental health presentations, things like severe anxiety, depression, drug and alcohol issues, suicidal ideation, self-harm, none of these things are isolated incidents. And what we see is they reverberate through entire communities, especially in regional and rural Western Australia. In a small town, when somebody experiences a crisis, it can affect families, workplaces, schools, local businesses. For instance, farms might slow down if a key worker is struggling, or local volunteer organisations may lose responders. Community events, which are often the lifeline for social connection, can also feel the strain. Data from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare shows that suicide rates in rural areas can be up to twice as high or more as they are in urban centres, with factors like isolation, economic pressures, droughts, things like mining downturns. And add to that, the limited access to services can also exacerbate that issue. But here's kind of the different perspective. These crises also highlight our community's incredible resilience. I've seen firsthand how a single act of support can really change things for the positive, and not just saving a life, but strengthening a whole town or a whole community. In places like the Wheatbelt or the Pilbara, where distances are vast and stigma around mental health can linger, acute presentations often stem from unspoken burdens like financial stress, cultural issues and concerns, or grief and loss. Yet these same communities rally with mateship and resourcefulness. So the impact isn't just tragic. I believe it's a call to action that can build stronger and more connected communities. At Richmind WA, we see this daily through our supported accommodation, our outreach programs, and our community training services. We've helped individuals navigate acute episodes by providing safe spaces, personalised recovery plans. But it's something that we can't do alone. And that's where local governments come in. You, as the backbone of community infrastructure, you have the power to amplify providers like us, turning potential tragedies into stories of hope, and down the track, prevention as well. So local governments can support and promote services like Richmind WA, but let's break it down into some actionable steps. So focusing on suicide prevention as a huge priority for rural areas. And I'll frame this around 3 key areas. So the first and most important, I believe, is training staff. Then identifying referral pathways. And I understand in rural areas that can be really challenging, as they can be few and far between. And then raising awareness of service options. So starting with training local government employees, from council workers and librarians to youth workers, emergency responders, they are often the first point of contact for somebody who is in crisis, because they're the people who are embedded in your communities. And with proper training, that person or those people could have the ability to spot warning signs early and to address them. At Richmind WA, we offer mental health training courses that equip participants with practical tools. Trainings like mental health first aid, which you've all heard about, youth mental health first aid. A really important one for us is the trauma-informed de-escalation training. What we found when we were training staff with the City of Busselton was, over the day, people who had maybe negative perceptions of people who may be homeless or struggling with drug and alcohol challenges, is that when they started to understand how trauma impacts lives and the outcomes of their lives, that all of a sudden those staff started to develop real empathy for the people who they were encountering on the streets. And it was actually an amazing thing to see that. And then the other one we have is our Bouncing Back Mental Health for Sporting Clubs program. So we've been out to over 200 sporting clubs in WA. Nearly 3,000 people have engaged in our program, where we go out to sporting clubs and we do several things. We provide short 30 to 40 minutes, pretty simple mental health first aid talks, and people can be stuffing their face with a hot dog or having a beer, and we just talk about mental health and suicide prevention. And then with the help of Football West and Sports West and True Sport, we've created a 2-hour talk that goes into trauma related stuff into sport, drug and alcohol issues, and then that sort of in the sporting things that also goes into bullying and de-escalation. As a lot of people know, there's been quite a few struggles in WA in the past year around issues with sporting clubs and violence on the sidelines. So We can train staff to identify when a person is in crisis. For example, a ranger or a librarian notices a regular visitor or a local seeming withdrawn or in crisis, and then all of a sudden, those staff have the skills to approach that person, engage in a conversation that can lead to that person getting access to appropriate services and help. Or, and what I love about Act, Belong, Commit is that just to let them know that there's help out there and there's people that care. A sense of belonging is vitally important for people's mental health. We've delivered similar training to community groups and local government authorities, resulting in increased early interventions and better outcomes. Local governments can subsidise or co-host these sessions, and perhaps integrating them into professional development days. So this not only builds capacity, but positions your local government authority as a proactive leader in mental health. And that helps to foster trust amongst residents and creating safer and healthier communities. Just quickly, how we identify referral pathways. So in regional areas where specialist services might be hours away, clear pathways can be lifesavers. So acute mental health issues really require swift and seamless handoffs from a GP or a concerned friend or a community member to help that person access professional support. And it can be very traumatic for people who are in need of help that can't access support. That can be very challenging for people. In suicide prevention specifically, we can co-develop protocols for high-risk groups like young men in rural communities, and we do this by drawing on our expertise in men's mental health initiatives and open mental health initiatives, and they can help us provide clubs and communities with the tools to identify when somebody's struggling, how to formulate a conversation with them, and how to direct them towards the appropriate services they might need. So finally, I'm running out of oxygen here, raising awareness of service options. So stigma and lack of knowledge are huge barriers in rural WA and local areas where people might not know that help exists, or they might be ashamed or embarrassed to reach out for help. Local governments are uniquely positioned to promote and partner with providers like us through community channels like council newsletters, social media campaigns, or events like ag shows, NAIDOC week celebrations, etc. We could team together, co-create awareness drives such as mental health roadshows or workshops highlighting stories of recovery to normalise seeking help. So healthy communities mean thriving local economies, fewer sick days, stronger volunteer bases and more vibrant towns. So partnering with mental health service providers like Richmind WA, local governments can track outcomes, reduce hospital admissions and basically justify ongoing support for these things. So in wrapping up, from this community-focused perspective, acute mental health presentations challenge us, but I believe they also unite us. Suicide prevention in regional and rural WA demands collective action, and local governments are pivotal in supporting providers like Richmind WA. By investing in staff and community training, streamlining referrals and boosting awareness, we can create safer, healthier and more resilient communities. That's me. Thank you.
Paul, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for making, for joining the stepping stones. I think one of what we see from our perspective is a sort of growing sense amongst local government officers of increasing burden and responsibility and pressure on their services that have not historically or conventionally necessarily needed to serve that role of looking out for people in need. And I think your message is spot on, is that we're part of a collective here and local governments play a leadership role in keeping those communities cohesive and thriving. And we're one partner among many. So I've seen some really fantastic, innovative partnership arrangements. Boy Up Brook has an amazing community-wide partnership program down there, and I know the Shire is part of that initiative. The key message here is that no, local governments don't have primary responsibility for service delivery in this space, but they are a crucial partner within the collective sort of fabric of a community in preventing and protecting residents and community members as mental health challenges sort of increase and become more pervasive, more widespread. So thank you very much. I don't know if the presenters want to just come online and just so I can thank you so much again for joining us today. We've got incredibly diverse representation from across WA today. I've unfortunately set up the Q&A function on here instead of the chat. So I'm so sorry, people are prevented from turning their mics on, and I should have fixed that. But I just want to give a big shout out. The City of South Perth is on here, to Catherine and the team there, and all the amazing work that you are doing from Broome to Wanneroo, right through to Wongan, and who else have we got online? I was just looking at the list. Vic Park, Manjimup. We've got such diverse representation here today. Just makes us so happy. Please don't hesitate to reach out to the community team here at WALGA if you have any feedback. We will, like we always do, publish the recording of this session on our website. And send you an email to follow up after this event so that you've got the links that you need. Presenters, if you would like to share PDF versions of your slides, we will distribute those to everyone that's registered today, and make sure that you can follow up on all those links and all those resources. Paul's popped his email address. Was originally a PAL, but now you've corrected that. That's great. paul.peacock@rw.org.au. And I just want to thank you for joining us today and for all the work that you're doing, and wish you a very happy National Mental Health Week, and go well. We'll see you soon. Thank you.